right, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Midday Diligence. I'm Stevie J. That's Camber. We're here to talk a little Dallas Cowboys football with you for the next hour or so. Just kind of depending on how things go. Maybe a little shorter, maybe a little longer. You never know. But here we are. All right. First and foremost, Camber, how was your Christmas?
It was fantastic. Pretty low key. Didn't have to go anywhere. Didn't have to do much. Switched up the meal plan that we normally do. Normally we do like a big standing prime rib on Christmas Eve, and we order out Mexican food for Christmas Day to keep anybody from cooking. And we switched them because I didn't want to be in the kitchen at all on Christmas Eve because we had a very important thing going on. You know, that game.
Oh,
You know, the game.
the game.
The game.
Yeah, and I was just I was telling Camber before we came in here that so it was during the Gallup touchdown. I missed the Gallup touchdown because my internet went out, and I streamed the game, and I was just like in a panic. So it just goes out, and usually I can like refresh the page or do whatever, and it comes back on. You know, so. I found out what it was. You have to go through a whole diagnosis of, what the heck is going on. Finally got my internet back up and got to see that amazing fourth quarter where the Dallas Cowboys came back to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. That's right. 40-34. That was some exciting stuff. That was a fantastic game. And I don't, aside from all the talk of who played, who didn't play, well, if this had gone our way and all of that type of stuff, otherwise, this was just a really, really good football game, regardless of what side you're looking at it from.
Oh, absolutely. It was a shootout, and we thought it was, and I knew it was going to come down to the end, and it did. But this was a hard-played game, and we'll get into it a little bit later, but as physical of a game it is, we only have 5 days to prepare for this next one. So...
And that is going to be very interesting. This game coming up, like Camber said, we're going to get more into it a little bit later. But there are some things shaping up in this game against the Titans that, you might either fall into temptation or you might have to resist it, resting your own guys, some of your own players. And that thought is going to get kicked around, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. We can talk about that a little bit more. But let's get this thing started with a star up and a star down, or a star up on the offense and the defense. So star up offensively for the Cowboys in their 40-34 win over the Eagles. Who do you give it to on offense?
So, the clear two that everybody would automatically say would be Dak Prescott or CeeDee Lamb. But
Absolutely.
I'm going to go somewhere different with mine. And we were visited by the ghost of Christmas present. And that 3 for 30 down the line to T.Y. Hilton, that changed the entire tone of this game and how things were going. So, Mr. T.Y. Hilton, you get my star up.
Hey, and don't forget T.Y. Hilton on another third down earlier in the game drew the defensive contact, illegal contact down the field. And
Right.
I think that was a 3rd and 7, perhaps. And just put a savvy move out there on, I believe, Darius Slay. And Darius Slay gets hit with the illegal contact, first down. So
A lot of veteran moves out of him.
Twice did T.Y. Hilton come to the Cowboys' aid. I thought that was pretty awesome. Especially you're talking about first game for the guy in 2022.
Right. Yeah. So definitely giving it to him. You evidently saw his veteran presence on the field and what he can bring to it. And like we've been saying all along, that defensive coordinator had to scheme for him also. He was a threat on the field, and they had to plan for him, which I think took a lot of the heat off of CeeDee, and we saw a lot of the things that we got to see out of Lamb out of that.
And, whenever you look at what T.Y. Hilton brings to this team, initially, you kind of point him out to your guys. Like, you're not going to spend a whole lot of your week in preparation, worrying about T.Y. Hilton. First game of the season, getting acclimated, kind of, just getting into the groove of things. But now that you see this play, and, this is something, this is why he's here. He's not here to catch 7 or 8 balls. He's here for that game-changing play, for that one deep threat, to make other teams look at him and go, like you said, we got to be aware of where this guy is now that he's on the field. And that potentially can open things up underneath for more CeeDee Lamb, for Dalton Schultz, who honestly, we haven't seen a whole lot of production out of Dalton Schultz, and I got to wonder if having a guy that can stretch that back end like T.Y. Hilton can create more opportunities for Dalton Schultz as we get here to the end of the season, get into the playoffs. I mean, there's a ripple effect that comes with T.Y. Hilton giving you a vertical threat. So that is a fantastic choice for your star of offensive player. What about on D? Well, I guess I'll do one.
You can do one too.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I am going to give it to Dak Prescott. He had the whoopsie daisy at the very beginning, and which I did not say whoopsie daisy when it happened. But as the rest of it unfolds, we can change our terminology from "oh shit" to whoops. Well.
Yeah. We spotted him. We spotted him 6.
Exactly. They came in. They were like, "Oh, the Cowboys are 5-point favorites," and Dak was like, "Really? No. I mean, are we?" Like that, they're the 13-1. They're the favorites. They got the MVP who didn't play. I get it. I know. But Dak was like, let's move that line. Vegas doesn't move the line. I move the line. Good grief.
Right.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and give him the old block. Give him the old Jake Ferguson out there. Okay, there you go.
There we go.
All right, so Dak was virtually flawless after that pick 6. And when I say virtually flawless, I mean even some of the incompletions. I mean, you look at that dot to Michael Gallup in the back corner of the end zone, which is a whole other conversation that we'll probably also get into. Perfect throw.
Yeah.
Perfect throw.
And then he went 24 for 24 in zone.
Is that good? Is that what you want to do?
I heard that's yes.
Decent.
I heard that's good. Yeah. Nobody's done it since 2019. So I think it's good.
There you go. So Dak Prescott, and by the way, Dak is in the top 15 in the NFL in passing touchdowns now. He's 14th in the NFL in passing touchdowns.
After missing 6 games?
After missing 6 games. Everybody above him has played more games, and the next 11 quarterbacks below him have played more games. So for those who are skeptical about whether or not Dak Prescott is playing well enough, do we wish the turnovers would decrease? Yeah. Which, actually, you had one. One is less than 2 to 3 that they've been having over the last month and a half.
But those are going to come with being more aggressive.
Sure.
And we've wanted that out of him also. Patrick Mahomes threw 3, not in this week's game, the week before. Yeah. Yep. So it comes with the territory also.
And you got to remember that when you stack up these interceptions and you're looking at interceptions, remember quarterbacks fumble too. And a lot of times everybody wants the stat to be the picks, but a fumble is also a turnover, just so people are aware. And Dak, how many does he have of that this season? He does not have any lost fumbles.
Right.
Does not have any lost fumbles. All right, so Josh Allen has lost fumbles. Patrick Mahomes has lost fumbles. You start stacking up the total turnovers, and Dak is, middle of the pack. We'd like it to be less, obviously, because he did miss those games. Some of them were fluky, of course. PFF came out and, told us what we've been seeing with our own eyes, like, oh, this one's not his fault, that one's not his fault. He's got 12 interceptions on the year. 6 of them are on a receiver, a tight end, on the offensive line, on defensive player getting a deflection, or a good play made by the defense, an unturnover worthy pass is what they called it, and the other 6 are on Dak. Okay, but if you stack it up that way, Dak has the most non-turnover worthy interceptions in the NFL, and that to me says that guys around him need to step up. And Saturday against the Eagles, guys around him did step up, a la T.Y. Hilton, your pick,
Right.
And it's also kind of coming as the run game is starting to kind of, where's that at? We're not getting an explosive Tony Pollard. He's dealing with a thigh thing. Zeke is, we're back in the, 50 to 60 yards per game type area instead of that 70, 80 range. And now your quarterback, Dak Prescott, picking up those pieces, shouldering the load. CeeDee Lamb playing virtually perfect himself. Remember the Giants game, big drops, and you have to make up for it. And my thing with CD, Camber, always was play like you do after the mistake, before the mistake.
Right. And he's doing it now. I mean,
absolutely.
You could not have asked for a better game out of him on this one. It was flawless out of him. So
you could argue it's his best game of his career.
Right. And on top of the catches, if you're watching him block, he's throwing his body in there, and his pass blocking and run block has been fantastic when he's on the field. And you know what I did also notice? They went back to him being in motion.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a big key.
Yeah, it makes me curious why we kind of go a week or two without it, and then there it is again, and then a week or two without it, and then there it is again. I'm curious about where that's at. Maybe there's formations that they're just trying to give looks on. The idea is to look the same each and every time you line up and do different things out of that same formation. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe it's something they see during the week on film when they watch the Eagles or whoever it may be. I'm not entirely sure, but it does seem like you have more success with CeeDee Lamb when you put him in motion.
Completely
Defense.
agree.
Defense star up.
Okay, so my defensive star up is going to be a little shocking to some of you. It's shocking that I'm saying it. And I really kind of debated on, there was some obvious that people will say, well, where was Micah? Micah was very much there. But I am going to give it to Nahshon Wright, because that was better than any of us expected to happen in that corner. It really was. And so I have to give my star to Nahshon Wright.
I remember in the preseason, and his mom jumped in a space one night and was talking about the work he'd been doing to have more body. He put on 10 or 15 pounds in the off season of muscle. He's got the build, he's got the length, he's got, the arms and all the things that Dan Quinn wants. That's why he's a top 100 pick, and people question that. But opportunity not. Oh yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. I remember the draft show your guy brought us was like, dogging, and going in just like, what are they doing? And then comes back and is like, okay, I watched, and maybe it's not as bad as I thought, but I still give him a fifth. That type of thing. And I think that's where we all were. Us collectively were like looking through draft guides, pulling up Dane Brugler's Beast and being like,
Yeah, you had to keep going back for him. Yeah.
That's your 400.
And the fact, and the fact that you left Asante Samuel Jr.'s on the board and Elijah Molden in front of him, or right behind him, but they were on the board there. That stung that they weren't taking that and they were taking him. But he was given the opportunity, and this is why I had to give him the star. The opportunity was presented to him that you had to work to get this job, and you got to show us in practice, and then you need to show out in the game. And the week before, when he got put in, when Kelvin Joseph went out, he got targeted for six times, 31 yards, had 4 tackles, came in on this game, really was able to hold his own. So that's why I'm giving him the star, because I thought it was going to be a bloodbath over there on that corner.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And, you know, I looked up the numbers a little bit earlier, and they were able to complete a high percentage on him, but it was short stuff. I mean, he came up and was physical, tackled, got the ball, ball catcher to the ground, didn't
had
allow
a PBU,
anything,
had
a pass breakup, didn't allow anything after the catch. I was really, really impressed with Nahshon Wright. And that was much needed, because you had a guy out there off the street, Mackenzie Alexander. We kind of wondered which of these corners off the street was going to get some run first. It was Mackenzie Alexander. Of course, they brought in a couple of other guys, but I was really impressed that, look, pressure's on, opportunities here. How are you going to react? How are you going to respond? And Wright seemed ready. He seemed prepared for that opportunity. And if you're being fair, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, Dan Quinn, if you're being fair, you look at this and you go, all right, you won it until you lose it. It's yours until you no longer have it as yours. So I think Nahshon Wright is going to hone that cornerback 2 spot probably for the rest of the season and going into the playoffs. My star up on defense, and I thought about Nahshon Wright. It's tough, but I think I'm going to go with Jayron Kearse. And Jayron Kearse, yeah, and let's be honest, first of all, the Eagles, they put up a lot of yards. They operated really well offensively until that final series when Micah Parsons kind of wrecked the whole game plan. And Micah could have been the pick because of that. He had a lot of pressure, man. But creating turnovers is a big deal. And Jayron Kearse's interception was so impressive. Probably a situation where if it's our guy, if the roles are reversed, we're screaming for pass interference, got on his back a little bit. But, the way that he picked that ball off, has one hand on the back of the receiver and the other one, kind of cradling that football as it comes into his body. It was just a really, really impressive play. And then, you got the assignment of covering a tight end that's a really talented player. So I was really, really happy with the job Jayron Kearse did. And now you're getting to a defensive backfield that has a 6'2" corner, a 6'4" corner, and then a 6'4" safety out there. And that's prototype Dan Quinn. That's exactly what he wants out there. He's probably not running as much cover 3 as he has in the past, but it's still the go-to for him. And so that's what he wants. Yeah. And Bland was awesome too, man.
Yeah. I was about to say, you got to, yeah.
Absolutely. And
yeah. And Golston had himself a very solid game also, where we really, really needed him to step up in that position with Hankins being gone, and really, really did well.
I'm with you, man. I mean, there were guys. Here's the thing, they weren't consistent throughout the day, but there were guys who made plays when plays needed to be made. All right, and you look at that final drive for the Eagles, and Gardner Minshew, who had an outstanding game. Gardner Minshew went out there and balled. He played really well. But you feel that pressure from Micah Parsons, who was winded, who was gassed, who you see him calling the timeout just like, man, give me a little break. Give me this much air and this much water, and I'll go give you everything that I've got. And I think that's what happened. And you can see, I think Baldy broke it down, Brian Baldinger, and he's getting under Mailata. He's getting around him. The bend is incredible, the speed, those first steps, the hesitation moves, the variety of pass rush moves that he uses. And Gardner Minshew wanted no part of it. I mean, you see it. Throw the ball away. Try to put the ball maybe in a place where only my receiver can. No, not even close. Throw the ball away. He essentially ruined their potential game-winning drive
Oh,
on his
yeah,
own once they got into Cowboys territory.
absolutely.
So those are Parsons, it was not great in the box score if you're just sitting there watching the box score. But when you include stuff like quarterback pressures, an assist, you look at that fumble that came out that Carlos Watkins was able to get a hand on and strip it out of Miles Sanders' hands. Yeah, that happens because of Micah Parsons. So as we move along, let's talk about I really wanted to kind of touch on how this situation at right tackle is going. Because evidently, it's just been a crazy weekend. I haven't been able to go back and watch like every play, right?
Hmm.
But evidently, Tyler Smith had his best game in pass protection of the season.
Absolutely. In fact, I was on a show with the Birds and Boys. They did a entire hate week last week.
Yeah.
And I really, really kind of destroyed and got down about Tyler Smith's pass pro. And I hope maybe he heard me and he was going to prove me wrong, because he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and it had been a struggle all year. People say he's up and down. Really, it's just been he's been a good run blocker. He's been a bad pass blocker. I mean,
Right.
it really hasn't. I mean, when you say up and down, that suggests that there's been streaks of quality pass protection that hasn't sustained. It's up and down. That really hasn't. He's been like an 8 out of 10 in run blocking and then a 3 out of 10 in pass protection. And that's how it's been. I mean, that's just each and every game, week by week. Here, he finally had an outstanding game in pass protection and did it against a very good defensive line, a very good pass rush, too. So Tyler Smith was very impressive on the left side. I'm curious to go back and watch and see how Tyron did on the right. It's hard to switch sides. I figure if anybody can do it, it's got to be Tyron Smith. But for you, Camber, what did you see out of Tyron in this game against the Eagles?
Well, he's going to be solid at the level of play that he has. What I noticed in this game versus a little bit more in the game before against Jacksonville is that he's getting more, his feet work is becoming better, because it is it's like learning a new dance. And so he's learning a new dance. And I noticed that is getting much better for him. So I'd be shocked if he gets moved off of that position the rest of the season and throughout the playoffs.
Oh yeah, no, you don't have any other options really. So it's going to be his. It's going to be his to go with. So it will be interesting. I'm with you. It'll be interesting to see how he continues to develop on the right side. I say develop. I mean, really just get acclimated, get used to the spot. I feel like Tyron Smith at 30 years old and thousands of snaps is acclimate. I mean, he's developed.
Right.
he's developed.
He's fine.
It's the wrong word to use.
Right.
Okay.
But also big shout out to Tyler Biotish.
Sure.
Fantastic game out of him. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that there might have been one time when I heard Ndamukong Suh's name called. Outside of that, they did something that I've always wanted us to do. They loaded up at defensive tackle. Fletcher Cox isn't the guy he once was anymore. I get that, but they got was it Milton Williams? I think is a really good player that they drafted. They went and got Linval Joseph, and they went and got Ndamukong Suh. You got Jordan Davis, who had come back from being hurt and then got hurt again in that game. So they had a plethora of big men in the middle. Tyler Biotish seemed like he had a handle on it. Seemed like he had a really good day. I don't think I can say the same for Connor McGovern. I think that he probably was the weak link of this offensive line. Tyron wasn't great, though we're patient with him, and he wasn't terrible. He's probably mediocre. Gets the job done, but he's still coming back from an injury. He's still getting used to a new position that he's going to play this season. And at the end of the day, Dak went to his side, whether it's an escape route, getting out there on the right end and making a play. I'm skeptical of the offensive line right now. I'm concerned about the yards per carry average dropping, about the run game not producing what it has all season long at this point in time. I'm curious if that's due to the type of competition you're playing. The Eagles are tough against the run. We lit them up in the passing game. They've been tough against the pass. But at the end of the day, it seems like the roles are flipping for this offensive line, and I would prefer that instead of flipping, you just elevated your pass protection and keep your quality of run game.
Right, because we talked about the gauntlet of running backs that we were facing in these last games. The last 6-7 games, and Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor. We can go right on down the line. Besides, Travis Etienne is the only one to have put up 100 yards on us through this, and now they're going to have one last big challenge with Dalvin Cook possibly on Thursday night.
Yeah, Derrick Henry.
Derrick Henry, I meant.
Right.
Derrick Henry.
So here, that can take us into the discussion now again about the Titans. Because the honest truth is this game doesn't mean anything for the Titans. They could lose and Jacksonville could win, vice versa. And
this is their injury report.
Yeah.
And there is only one person that says limited on it, and the rest are DNPs.
It might be a shorter list to just name who is healthy.
Right. Right.
And I don't think, and I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this, but I don't think that all of that is necessarily, oh man, I don't think he'll be able to go. To me, it's this game doesn't mean anything. Why run quality players out there? Jeffrey Simmons is on that list. He's an extremely good defensive tackle. Derrick Henry's on the list. There's really
Christian Fulton, Zach Cunningham. You know what? I'm at the point that because they have to report any little thing, and that's why Zach Martin with his knee and Tony Pollard with the thigh is reported on our injury list. I'm thinking that some of these guys might have a hangnail, and they're putting them on this right now.
Yeah,
what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their starters on defense are questionable right now. 6 of them of starters,
and that puts Dallas in a really interesting position too, because in all likelihood, Dallas is secured in the number 5 seed. They're not locked. You could still get the number 1 seed, should the stars align correctly, and you want New Orleans. Here's what's interesting. Philly and New Orleans playing this week with Philly owning that pick. What gives there? Because New Orleans is still in a playoff battle, but you're in a division where you could have a top 10 pick, or you're going to pick outside the top 25, top 24. I mean, that's the jump. That's one game that makes that difference for the Philadelphia Eagles. So that's a little bit of a conundrum. And of course, if you're the Eagles, you're not worried about the draft. That's not your concern. That's down the road, of course. I get that. But you win that game and, or you lose that game and suddenly, you're one game away from the Cowboys overtaking you because Dallas has the tiebreakers.
Right. Right. And they're facing the Giants the last week. So,
yeah, there you go. So that'll be interesting. Obviously, they want to beat the Saints. If they do beat the Saints, then that drops New Orleans into that fantastic draft pick situation for Philadelphia. So, they'll probably be a little extra motivated. New Orleans, playoffs are still on the line. They'll be a little extra motivated. The draft pick doesn't belong to them anyway, so they don't care one way or the other about that. So I'm hoping they can come out and spoil the fun for Philly.
That's a scrappy defense. It really is a scrappy defense that they've got. And with Jalen Hurts not being on the field for them, we haven't heard yet, but if that's the case, and if you look at, so we came out of that game with no real injuries to say. The Zach Martin knee thing, he kind of scared us for a minute when he was, hobbling on the field. And this Tony Pollard thing is probably more like a thigh bruise than anything at this point. But we came out of that game with no notable injury. They cannot say the same. And so I think the Saints could probably give them a bit of trouble.
That's the kind of team there's a lot of teams with losing records this year in the NFL. And this is just how the league is. And this is what people have to understand. You look at teams like Jacksonville and Houston, they'll play a lot of teams very, very close. They may not win every ball game, but they'll play a lot of teams extremely close. New Orleans is relatively the same kind of team. They're well coached. They've got some good players. They just don't have the overall talent, especially at key positions like quarterback,
right,
to put them over the top to win the games. So,
yeah.
Saints have second. Yeah. Miles Sanders did not look great.
No.
And I've never really understood the hype on Miles Sanders. I think that he's a good player, but I've never thought that he was even one of the best two running backs in the division. Like I would take Saquon, I would take Pollard,
Zeke. I'm taking any of them before I'm taking him.
I'd
take Gibson out of Washington possibly over him.
And he's just a guy. He's a running back.
Right.
He's a running back.
Right.
That's what you can say about him.
And we did have one good thing that came off of the injury report that happened with a Cowboys player, but not on the field. That wreck with Sam Williams, he was sideswiped and it's a pretty dangerous intersection that he was in. And if anybody saw the car, probably pretty lucky that Sam walked away with the injuries he did. But Sam did clear concussion protocol yesterday, so he was limited practice. I'm going to say that Leighton Vander Esch is probably not going to play, and we could possibly see him that last week of the season if we really truly need to. Hankins we won't see on the field, but everybody else is a go if we need them.
And see, this is what I'm talking about, is even these guys, if it was a borderline call, Hankins, game time decision, we'll bring it down to Thursday night and we'll see. LVE, game time decision, bring it down to Thursday night and we'll see. No, just the Titans don't care about this game. Yeah, I want to win. I want to go out there and, collect the next win in the left-hand column, of course. But this game is not what the season is about anymore. There is no fighting for a playoff spot. Seeding is just about determined for the Cowboys. There's, the thought of, well, if the Eagles lose, you want to be hanging in there. Absolutely. We're not saying don't go win the game. We're saying be smart with your players' health. And I think that this is an area where Mike McCarthy is his best. You talk about what is Mike McCarthy best at with this football team. Managing player health is really, really, really one of his strengths. And so I wouldn't expect LVE or Hankins. You may not see a guy like maybe Tony Pollard. We'll see. I'm not saying he won't play. I'm saying that in a game like this, maybe his role is greatly reduced. Maybe you see more Mike Davis in a game like this. So we'll have to see how all of that shapes out. But, if Tennessee goes out there and rolls out, 11 defensive backups, then go roll over them, knock them over, go up 21-7 or whatever, and then kind of start slowly acclimating other guys into the ball game. And then in the second half, whatever happens, I guess. But
Right.
at the end of the day, Mike McCarthy will manage the health of this team, especially with the playoffs knocking at the door.
Exactly. And, and we are kind of almost in a fortunate situation where Vrabel has come out and said, and I don't know if he's playing a game or not, but that, he's said exactly what you did, that this game isn't that much, that he's got to consider the players' health, and that last game of the season is what really matters to them. You have to look at the fact that, they've got this coaching staff absolutely has to plan for if Derrick Henry is playing or not. And Derrick Henry is basically their only weapon besides the ability of Malik Willis to run. Nobody's going to be worried about Malik Willis throwing this ball at all. This is one that our corners are going to probably have a pretty easy day. It's just not going to be a big air raid kind of thing. Malik Willis just doesn't have the arm for it. So I see them, if they are going to run Derrick Henry, it's going to be super heavy with the run, but it's just, you plan for two different scenarios, and my gut feeling is that you're going to plan for that easier scenario. Like you said, go out, put a bunch of points on the board, then pull our starters, let them rest, because we are only playing on 5 days of rest. They practiced a light practice yesterday, full practice today. Tomorrow's travel day.
Yeah.
And then, you've got game on Thursday. So,
I don't watch much of the Titans, but Malik Willis, he's not the passing threat, right now as a rookie. He's going to develop, and you drafted him to take Ryan Tannehill's place eventually. That year was not meant to be 2022, but They also drafted Treylon Burks out of Arkansas, and this was one of my favorite players to watch in draft evaluation because of the versatile things you can do. So he's really the only other guy that I'm concerned about aside from Derrick Henry is, can they move around Treylon Burks, get him some handoffs on a jet sweep out of the backfield, throwing some screens, get the ball in his hands. And he's a big guy. He is a big-bodied wide receiver, and he is hell after the catch. He's not much of a downfield threat. He has the speed, but he's not a big leaper. He's not a big catch radius guy. But, man, he can go. All right. For a guy his size, and it's kind of funny, this is who the Titans evidently like to be. You got a running back who's 240 pounds who can run a 4.3 something. You got a wide receiver who's 235 pounds who can run a 4.3 something. They love big bodies. They love to be able to run you over, roll you over, out physical you.
It's a very physical team.
Absolutely. They want to play physical football, and Treylon Burks works into that. The challenge is going to be Malik Willis getting the ball in his hands. And Henry might not play.
Right.
And this is, the discussion really is without him, what else do they bring? I
actually think that in any kind of passing game that they might have, that they'll be looking to Austin Hooper, their tight end. He's solid. He's not elite by any. He's a guy. He's a solid guy. We'll put it that way. So I'd see some of that in the middle up there. But the one thing they do have to plan for is Malik Willis is a running quarterback. Yep. He does have some wheels, and so they are going. And we have struggled in the past with mobile quarterbacks. So that would be the one that's the only thing that concerns me about Malik Willis, because his arm absolutely does not.
Not at this point in his career. I think he can, he's a good looking prospect. He can develop. He can, he's not going to be like Zach Wilson by any stretch. He's going to be a good player someday. And running is a part of his game that is already part of what he can bring to the table. But he's not going to go out there and pick you apart, and if he does, then you've got bigger issues than you thought you had.
Right.
So What is happening in the chat here? I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
Hey, Spoon.
Shout out to Spoonie. Yeah. All right. Now, we talked about the Titans being a physical football team, Camber. And as you would suspect, with a team who has the identity of being physical, they hang their hat on defense. You know, they run the ball, mix in the pass. They're going to have a quarterback who can run. So maybe that's more part of their offense rather than throwing the football 30 times. They might dial that back to, 20 to 22 or so. And then ask Malik Willis to be a complement to whatever back is playing in this game. And if it's not Derrick Henry, the physicalness of your football team takes a massive hit, and you might have to incorporate Treylon Burks in a different way to make up for that because your backup running back is not going to. I mean, Derrick Henry's too special of a player to just plug in and replace. We talk about running backs don't matter. You can replace a whole bunch of them. That is true. There are always exceptions to the rule. Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, these types of guys are exceptions to the rule, and they're hard, if not impossible, to replace. So Tennessee is going to have to play their best defensive game against the Dallas Cowboys, and that's if they play their defensive starters or if they say, you guys, short week, we're already banged up, this game doesn't matter, y'all take a rest, have another bye week, and then run out maybe a couple of the bottom tier starters that are on that team.
This is an injured defense too. It's so injured. I mean, it goes deep. That Caleb Farley's on IR, Elijah Molden's on IR. It just keeps going deep, deep, deep. You know who they do have? You know who they have that might know some of our secrets? Terrell Basham.
Oh,
they picked up Terrell Basham.
They did, didn't he?
So, yeah.
I'm curious how many snaps he's gotten.
I don't know. I'm not even sure.
But
yeah, like I mentioned, 6 starters. Kevin Byard, that safety.
Good player.
He's I mean, he would be the one player really that it doesn't have a question next to his name right now that you probably have to attest for. But, like we said, with Jeffrey Simmons being questionable and he didn't even practice, they're going to be physical and they're going to go after us. But there's nothing about their pass pro right now or their pass rush that worries me. This is a game that I see Dak putting up over 300 if he stays in the entire game. If he has to play the entire game, I see 300 yards. If it's one of those scenarios that we've ran it up so far and that we're starting to pull everybody, maybe not. But this is the game that he could.
So Basham, in limited time, of course, he's playing a good bit. He's playing 20 to 30 snaps, which is more than he had been playing with Dallas. And so, I mean, that's man, I didn't realize just how beat up these guys are.
It's awful.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Let's see.
I mean,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 players on IR.
Right.
I think you just said that a while ago. I apologize.
Hurt. No, it's at every level on this team. They are banged up.
I didn't realize Mario.
Pardon? No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying. Then when you add this, where every single person that's on the injury report right now, except for one, which is a guard, did not practice at all.
Man. Yeah, and
yep. Spoon's right.
Let's see. I didn't realize.
Go in, take care of business, and go on.
Yeah, I didn't realize Mario Edwards Jr. was on this team.
He might see some playing time since Jeffrey Simmons is hurt.
Yeah, and he's not a world beater. He's not just this awesome, amazing player by any means. But he's a Denton, Texas product. Dad played for the Cowboys back in the '90s. Went to Denton Ryan, won a national championship at Florida State with Jameis Winston, and just because he's from our little back area, from our backyard, right. I was like, oh, yeah, Mario Edwards Jr. Hey, it'll be good to see you. So, man, I mean, Zach Cunningham, Bud Dupree, Monty Hooker, Christian Fulton. That's a lot.
Right.
A whole lot.
Caleb
Farley was part of that.
Caleb Farley and Elijah Molden were there starting outside corner and slot.
Yeah. Man. It would take, the more I look at this, the more I can't help but think, here comes the sleepwalking to start the football game type of Dallas Cowboys. I can't help it, that this is the type of game where you come out and it's just, run, pass, punt type of game plan.
Well, and I hope that they don't, and I hope it's not something, that this isn't shades of the Packers game or anything like that. And I would think that they're preaching to them and getting through their head that this is a game we've got to go in and take care of, regardless as to what happens with the rest of the season, because you can't give the Eagles that. I mean, if there's any kind of opportunity for us still to take the East and get that first or second seed, you don't mess around. Go in, take care of business. Like we've said a couple times, run it up during that first half. Run that score up, and then we can rest guys. And then they're going to have a very nice 9, almost 10 days until the next game. And use that to our advantage. Exactly.
Yep. So you gotta use your mini bye and almost create a larger bye for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's still NFL football. You're going to go out there. There's going to be guys who are 300 pounds who can bench 1,000,000 pounds and who can rough you up. And you still got to go out there and bang and everything like that. I get it. It's still going to be wear and tear no matter who you're playing against. But it feels more like some of the NFC East games in 2021. That's the way you should approach these is – right out of the gate. Remember, again, the last game against the Eagles, against Washington. I know we had a game against the Giants. You just go out there and you wipe the floor, give it a little spit shine, and then put the broom back in the closet and say, look, work's done. You guys, y'all can go finish it up. Let's see Cooper Rush again. Let's see Malik Davis. Let's see Noah Brown in the way that he was meant to be seen. And I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. That's just an unnecessary shot for no reason at all. But I would love to see Hendershot be mightily involved, be your leading receiver at the end of the game because you just played backups the entire third and fourth quarter. That's the idea. Executing that idea is going to be a little bit tougher than it ever is, but at the end of the day, I think that this is a stat padding type of ball game potentially.
Yep, give Turpin some of that, in that second half. Let's practice some of those jet sweeps with him. And
I'm curious how much Turpin has in the tank right now. Man, that guy's had a 2022 unlike anyone who has ever seen,
right.
But
he's been playing ball since February straight.
Yeah, absolutely. Though it would be fun. It would be a lot of fun to have T.Y. Hilton and Kevontae Turpin on the field in just dust up time.
Right.
Right.
Especially against the secondary.
Yeah. That's speed that the Cowboys haven't had at wide receiver. I saw something, and I don't want to get this wrong, but it was something like the Cowboys hadn't drafted a wide receiver who ran under a 4.5, not under a 4.4. That'd be more understandable, but under a 4.5 since like 2011 or something, like in a decade.
Simi Fehoko is.
Oh, that's true.
No, Simi Fehoko has that speed. Yeah, no, that's wrong.
So whoever said that, and I bought it too. I'm
Yeah.
like a dummy, like an idiot who doesn't have a clue how the Cowboys draft.
Yeah.
I bought it.
Yeah, no, Simi Fehoko definitely has that kind of speed.
I saw this, I noticed this, and of course, as soon as the play happens, I shut my mouth and don't talk about it like I didn't care. But I saw this, and pre-snap, I'm like, where the heck? What? Why do you not even have the? Oh,
that's why.
Pleasant surprise.
The ghost of Christmas present came to bring joy to all of Cowboys Nation across the land on that glorious Christmas Eve.
Man, that play. So usually 3rd and 30 is like screen time.
I was pissed. I was not a happy girl. I was like, 3rd and 30? Jesus, is this the way this game's going to go? This is what's going to happen.
Yeah. But, I could have sworn they were about to set up a screen. Just kind of a throwaway play, something safe, But they are aggressive. We talk about Dak's aggressiveness and how even though he's turning the ball over a little bit, regardless of whose fault it is, the ball's going to the other team. That's all that needs to be said about it. It's interesting that they do continue to be aggressive and do continue to attack instead of dialing it back and we'll take the open underneath stuff. We'll just take this easy, whatever the defense gives us. It's interesting to me because sometimes we look at how 2 plays later, you're talking about managing field position, 3rd and 30, we want something safe, pick up a few yards, then you're going to punt, pin them back, and let's play defense, right? And I think that's a lot of people's logic there. And here's Dallas like, hey, it's Christmas. We just got a shiny new toy. Right. I'm not trying to put the shiny new toy off to the side so that I can go try on my underwear from grandma. All right? That's not what I'm doing. All right, this is Christmas. You just got me this awesome thing over here, and I'm going to go play with it. So Dak Prescott drops back, and 50 yards later.
Right.
Just an absolute dot. Just an absolute.
And his longest pass of his career, correct? Longest pass of his career.
Like
was that
air
one.
yards?
Yeah, air yards. And you got to do a shout out to a couple people on that play. First, Kellen Moore for designing it in that way. Next, T.Y. Hilton to get up there and recognize what was going on and getting the separation that he was able to. And 3 for Dak Prescott to realize that the safety was so far out of position, because that safety absolutely should have came in and been over the top to help Slay on that and was nowhere near. So Dak knew exactly where to drop that bomb and for the magic to happen. So shout out to all 3 of them.
And I think that what is best about this play is you got to see that T.Y. Hilton can still run, and whether it's because he's fresh and hasn't played this year, whatever the case may be, even coming in fresh, there was a lot of skepticism about whether or not he could still go like the guy that he used to. I mean, this was his appeal coming out of Florida International, out of the Sun Belt Conference. Goes to the Colts, and he and Andrew Luck have a great relationship together. That's their 1-2 punch. That's their connection for so many years. He's a guy who's had 1,400 yards in the past. But everybody, oh man, he's been hurt. He's 33 years old. Valid. Also valid. I mean, everything you say about the guy, man, he hasn't played all year. He's sat out. Okay, valid as well. It was a wait and see situation. You had to see it on the field. And we saw it on the field. I mean, that dude shot out of a cannon. And not only that, but, the diving catch, he pulls it in, does a little somersault on the ground, springs up. I mean, this is the type of thing that I know Nix and I talk about often. We were very pleased in the offseason with the defense because you went out and got adequate NFL depth. but that's what's been lacking offensively is adequate NFL depth. Sammy Fajoko's hurt. You couldn't even try him. Jalen Tolbert, just not a thing. You know,
Yeah.
Cavante Turpin, they don't want to put out there for one reason or another. You know, you shipped off Amari Cooper, and you're like, Noah Brown can do it. Like, based off what? You know,
Right.
based off.
Well, they let Cedric Wilson walk
Yeah,
and
Cedric
shipped off
Wilson.
Amari Cooper, you
Yeah.
know, so, and then didn't do anything to fill the holes in the boat and just handed them pails, wanting them to bail it harder. So,
Absolutely. So, you know, Noah Brown, serviceable. You know, by no means has he been perfect at all. You know, but serviceable guy. Thank you, Noah
Right.
Brown. We appreciate you.
Right.
But otherwise, CeeDee Lamb has been it. You know, Michael
Yeah.
Gallup's been up and down since returning.
Washington was no good. Washington was. We needed him when Gallup was hurt, and he wasn't there. And then he comes back, and we see what he really is, and bye. You know.
Yeah, and I wonder if, you know, that type of foot injury that's tough, you know, especially
Right.
when your job is to run really, really fast.
In turn.
And turn and cut, you
In
know,
turn.
it's a tough injury
Right.
there.
Right.
But I look at T.Y. Hilton, and he, you know, by no means is he Amari Cooper. He's not bringing the same thing that Amari Cooper brings, but he also brings something that Amari doesn't. You know, Amari's not this vertical threat who could just run by guys. He's a pristine, crisp, elite route runner who can get open whenever he needs to get open. T.Y. Hilton is a run by you guy, and that's something. When is the last time the Cowboys had a run by you guy? Terrell Owens?
Maybe.
I mean, that I'd have to really, really rack my brain to think of a guy who
Right.
you line up. You're like, man, I can't play up on this guy. You know, he's just gonna, you know, give me a move at the line and then just be gone. We'll see how that all kind of trickles down in terms of, like I said, opening things up for CeeDee Lamb and Dalton Schultz underneath.
And you know, Michael Gallup, you talk about vertical. We saw some vertical out of Michael Gallup that we have not yet since that injury. And that beautiful awareness with his footwork, you know, the feet and planting it. I mean, it was nice to see that side of Michael Gallup coming back.
Which, you know, you look at the touchdown pass,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because we have seen that. You know, we have seen him catch the ball extended from his body. We've seen the catch radius. We've seen some of the athleticism. It's almost like the more difficult the catch, the more likely Michael Gallup is to catch it. The less difficult the catch, just we've seen it go through his hands and hit him in the face mask. You know, I mean, we've seen him get very, very, very little separation, not be able to get open, and he's just kind of an anomaly to me right now. I mean, it's like you have to make it hard on Michael Gallup in order for him to make the play, because when the easy play is there right in front of him, he's not really making that play right now. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a confidence thing, if, you know, that's a difficult ball. We're just forgetting. We're not thinking anymore. We're just going and making a play. I don't know.
No. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Very strange guy.
Yeah, it is.
Very lovable guy.
Right. Right.
He's like the nicest person on the planet.
Exactly.
No.
You're afraid to say anything negative about him.
Exactly. Michael Gallup, it's just like, dude, I'm going to say this, but also send you a care basket.
Right.
Because I feel so bad. You're such a nice guy.
Exactly.
So-
Exactly.
All right. So with that, let's get some predictions in for Thursday.
All right.
I'm going to have to go with the Cowboys because they have a football team right now and the Titans don't. And I'm going to say that it ends up 42-21. 42-21.
Okay. I am absolutely very close to that. Extremely close to that. I am going 41-16.
41. See, I figure that once Dallas puts in their backups, once you have dust up, mop up time, they might be able to get one. They might be able to add an extra touchdown. So
I will put a little asterisk next to it that if Derrick Henry plays and he plays more than that, I'm gonna have to give Derrick Henry a touchdown in all of that too. And then so I'd kick up to, we'll say 20. I'll get them up to 20. And they'll take away I'll take away one of their field goals and give them a Derrick Henry touchdown to get them to 20. No Derrick Henry, this team scores 16 points max, the way they're looking.
Man, Derrick Henry, that is so interesting. Regardless of how hurt he is, whether it's, he would sit out regardless, no matter how big the implications versus, well, it doesn't matter. So if he can go, what do you get out of that? To me, it doesn't make sense for him to play.
It makes no sense for him to play this game. It really doesn't. There's zero reward, all risk. I don't see them doing it. I think Vrabel's smarter than that to put the guy that they absolutely are going to need that next week against the Jaguars. Why would you even do it? He's got no rushing title on the line. There's nothing, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so I don't know, and I'm trying to just think. So even if he does go in and plays for a little while behind a backup offensive line with a backup quarterback with, one decent receiver who's a rookie, defensively you're banged up, you really got nothing, and the game doesn't matter. I don't know. I don't think it's worth the player. I don't think it's worth the health of the player to have him in there playing. So as we wrap,
and you have essentially given him a bye. You've given him a bye.
Sure.
Because did he play much in this last game? Did he play the whole game?
Did he play the whole game? I don't know about the whole game, but this game, he had a great game.
Okay.
Against
I didn't see
Houston.
the Titans game, so yeah, I didn't. I can just honestly say I did not watch the Titans Houston game.
Well, you're only American.
Wasn't on my must-see list.
Yeah, you're only human.
Right.
No one watched that game. So, but yeah, he had 120 something yards and a touchdown. I mean, he had a good game, but now you're like, well, he's hurt, he's banged up, and this is a guy that they lost for the whole year last year. And they weren't very good without him. And running backs don't matter, but Derrick Henry does. When there's 150 running backs in the NFL, there's like 3 or 4 of them that matter. And so Derrick Henry being one of those guys, if he does matter, then you don't play him against the Cowboys because that game doesn't matter.
Right.
There's a little more for the Cowboys than it does for the Titans.
Right.
Just a little.
I have a dilemma on Thursday night.
What's that?
I have a big dilemma. Cowboys play at 7. My Huskies are playing those Longhorns at 8.
Oh yeah.
So I think I'm moving a second TV into the room. I'm gonna have to play dual TVs at this point.
You know what I do is I third party stream one game and then watch the other one on TV, like on a regular channel. So I can have the Longhorn Husky game right here on my laptop in front of me, and then the Cowboys on Amazon Prime right there. So
well, I stream everything. So I've got one 65-inch in here, and then I've got a 55-inch in the other room. So I can essentially bring them both in.
I'm cheap. So anytime that me and my fiance go to Walmart, we walk by the TVs because I ask her to, And I'd never do it. I'd never buy a new TV. I have a nice little like 55 or 58 inch TV. It's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Just TVs are such great deals.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
why can every other, and I know we're going weird here, but why can't every other product in the world do like TVs have done? Little 32-inch tube television from 1967 cost $1,100, and now a 70-inch big plasma smart screen TV costs you like $700.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like everything else needs to follow television's way and do it like that so that we can live in a decent economy again. Okay, anyway. I'm sorry. I am unnecessarily impressed with the price of televisions.
Oh,
That is-
absolutely. And from now, like this entire time, from before Christmas until Super Bowl, if you're in the market to get a TV, it's now.
Absolutely. All right. Looks like that's going to do it. Be sure that you like and subscribe to Pick Six Sports. Of course, we have our show today, Due Diligence, and Wednesday shows, Thursday shows with Cam and Massey. Don't miss your midday mass on a Thursday, and then Freestyle Friday.
And we have a special guest on Thursday.
Y'all
The
do.
one and only Kelly. Yes, the one and only Kelly K9 is coming to join me and Mass on Thursday. It's going to be fun. So,
Is he Kelly
well,
or is he Swaggy J?
right. Yeah. Oh, there could be both.
Could be both. All right, guys. Thank you guys so very much for tuning in, and go Cowboys.